What era are you living in that you would expect us to have a relationship with distant relatives? I've been meaning to tell you this, but we don't want you around. My eldest son just had his first child. My eldest son's wife bluntly told us off when me and my husband went to visit our grandchild. But a month later, she showed up at our doorstep looking a mess. "My baby is sick." At those words, I responded with what she had once said to us. "That's not our grandchild, and is only your child, right?" I struggled trying to hold back my laughter, seeing the shocked look on her face as she turned bright red. My name is Sandy Wilson, 73 years old. I've been married to my husband, Jim, for 45 years. Back then, I was 27. After graduating from high school, I met my husband at our workplace. Jim was 2 years older than me. Until then, I had only seen him as a colleague, but he insisted on us dating and eventually we ended up together. I'm more of a reserved type, and I had no dating experience with men until I met my husband. Back in the day, the average age for a woman to get married was 24. My friends, relatives, and my younger sister got married in their early 20s. Seeing everyone around me getting married, I felt pressured to get married. I even had a blind date once, but it didn't work out. I worried I might end up alone for the rest of my life, but I always believed that my career was something that no one could ever take away from me. So, I was committed to my career. Thanks to that, I was earning a decent salary by the age of 27 and was involved in various projects. I believe I was able to earn respect from my colleagues too. Perhaps my boss gave me various opportunities thinking I wouldn't get married. When I announced that I was getting married to Jim, they were quite surprised. Back then, it was common for a woman to quit working after getting married, but I was asked to stay at the company and we became one of the few dual-income couples, which was rare back then. Soon after we got married, I gave birth to our first son, Chase. It wasn't an era where you could rely on maternity leave, so I was busy juggling work and raising Chase, with help from my mother-in-law. Even after our second son, Nick, was born, my life didn't change much, but I loved my children. And Jim too, of course. My mother-in-law helped me a lot. She always supported me with my work without any complaints. She was indeed a wonderful mother-in-law. I resigned from my job to take care of my mother-in-law when she fell ill. I felt indebted to her as she had helped me tremendously in the past. Caring for her was not a burden at all. On the contrary, I was glad that I could repay her kindness even in a small way. After her funeral, the house felt strangely empty. Time passed, and about 6 years ago, our family received good news. My younger son, Nick, was getting married. His fiancée was a woman his age named Katie. They met at their workplace just like my husband and I. I was overjoyed. I hoped to live with them and be a good mother-in-law to Katie, just like my own mother-in-law was to me. But Nick said, "Isn't my older brother going to inherit this house?" and decided to move out. Our property wasn't large in area, but we had a plot of land nearby which we decided to give to Nick. Nick and Katie were thrilled and they built their home there. "It's a wonderful house with great space for a family to live," Katie told me. "You're always welcome to visit." Of course, you can't take such statements at face value, but I was happy Nick had found such a wonderful young woman. 2 years after their marriage, my first grandchild was born. Very energetic little boy, followed by a girl. Nick was doing a wonderful job as his family's breadwinner. I was quite proud and reliant on him. 5 years after Nick got married, exactly a year ago from now, my oldest son Chase also decided to get married. He was 41 at the time. We got relieved since we were worried that he would never get married. His wife is a woman named Diana. She's 7 years younger than Chase, but is a mature woman in her mid-30s. We had no concerns about their marriage. All our children were finally settled, and my husband and I were certain we were headed for a peaceful retirement. However, when Chase decided to get married, the first issue that came up was their housing arrangements. We didn't mind living together, of course. This house was intended to eventually be passed down to Chase, and he probably assumed so as well. After revisiting this discussion, my husband told our oldest son, Chase, "However, you're newlyweds and Diana might feel awkward around us. It might cost a bit, but you could consider living on your own for a while." As a gift for the couple who hadn't had a wedding ceremony yet, we decided to rent out a condo we'd previously bought for an investment, charging them less than half of the market rent. We also furnished the place as a wedding gift. This is where the two of them began their new life together. Nevertheless, we're still staying here in this house so they can come back for Christmas. Having the whole family together for Christmas brings me so much joy that I go all out preparing a whole feast. On New Year's Eve night, Chase and his wife arrived first. "Welcome back, it must have been cold, huh?" I said and greeted them. I greeted them as they came in, exhaling white breaths in the chilly air. My husband was relaxing in the living room. While we were all discussing having a drink together and having dinner, Diana was looking around the room. "Diana, what's up? Come sit with us." They only got married recently. I figured she might be feeling a bit out of place being newly married. "Well," she looked up at the ceiling. "Is that a stain up there?" "Huh?" I followed her gaze to where she was pointing. "Oh, you're right. I've never noticed." Ignoring my response, Diana moved on to examine a mark on the wall. "And there's a scratch here." "Oh, that. Chase and Nick did that when they were little," I explained, laughing while looking at the mark on the wall. They had made a bigger mark than they intended during one of their mischievous phases and took turns standing awkwardly in front of it to cover it up. Of course we found out and they got scolded in the end. This was a story from when Chase was in elementary school. It's nice to have a daughter-in-law. In moments like these, I find myself reminiscing about the past and the smallest of things. It was then when I tenderly traced the aged scars of my nostalgic memories. "How much do you think it would cost to fix this?" I was taken aback by the words of Diana. "And this stain too. You didn't by chance make a height chart by scratching the pillar, did you?" "Excuse me?" Not understanding what she meant, all I could do was stare at my daughter-in-law. "You're giving this house to Chase, right? If you're selling it, it has to be in pristine condition or it won't sell, right?" Her words seemed innocent enough. I wanted to scream. "What are you talking about?" But I discovered that when surprise exceeds its limit, it leaves you speechless. "Sandy, Diana," interrupted by my husband's voice, I returned to him and Chase. "What were you two talking about?" At Chase's question, his wife flashed a smile. "We were just looking at the scratches that you and Nick made when you guys were goofy kids." My husband and Chase exchanged nostalgic smiles. But after hearing what she said earlier, I couldn't muster up a smile. The three of them laughed, oblivious to my state. "Diana, here you go." My husband offered our daughter-in-law a beer. Dad," Chase intervened. "Diana is actually pregnant." "What?" My husband and I voiced our surprise in unison. Well, congratulations! They only got married this year. I never thought they'd already have a child." Faced with the joyful news, I too broke into a smile. Maybe she's more attentive to the little things because she's pregnant. Perhaps there was no deeper meaning to her words from before. My wish to be a good mother-in-law covered any doubts I had started to harbor towards her. Soon, our Nick's family also got here and joined us. We all enjoyed the crab that our Nick had sent for the holidays, and after a joyful new year, we went back to our usual daily life. As I hung up the laundry, my breath bogged up in the cold air. It's a chilly year. Suddenly, I started to worry about my pregnant daughter-in-law. On New Year's, my Chase told me that his wife, in fact, wasn't feeling very well. Being pregnant is stressing, I know, and that too, it was her first time. When I was pregnant, I used to confide in my own mother-in-law and get her help with household chores. I felt a strong sense of duty to do the same. I finished hanging the laundry and then headed to the kitchen. I prepared a soup filled with vegetables, which would be easy for my daughter-in-law to eat, and I figured I'd also fry some pork cutlets, which she could reheat in the toaster and enjoy in the evening. I added a salad to complement the lack of vegetables, so I guess this is good enough. I didn't want to force my daughter-in-law to eat, so I decided to call her before cooking. "Hello, Diana. How are you feeling?" Whenever I call her, she answers after only a few rings.
"Just usual, nothing special.
Although her tone was cold, I approached her gently, asking about her needs. You know, with pregnancy, preparing meals and doing household chores can be hard. Don't hesitate to ask for help if you ever need me. Her response was non-committal. Would you like me to make extra dinner and bring it over early? Of course, only if you don't mind, that is. I asked her hesitantly. She said nothing. Maybe she found it hard to refuse, so I also fell silent. I'm sorry if I was assuming things, but I just thought I could help. If you don't want it, I'll forget about it for today. To my daughter-in-law's silence, I said this, intending to end the call.
No, I would like to have them.
My daughter-in-law responded with a clear voice. I was happy that she relied on me. Got it, I'll bring it to you right away. I responded enthusiastically and immediately went to the kitchen. Are you already preparing dinner, Sandy? My husband asked. I'm taking it to Chase's place. Diana's pregnant and chores must be tough on her. My husband smiled happily at my response. I packed the soup, pork cutlets, and the salad I made into separate containers. They were quite heavy. Seeing me about to head out by bus, my husband offered to drive me instead. I asked him to wait in the parking lot of their apartment building. Having him, an in-law of the opposite sex, around might make Diana feel more uncomfortable than necessary. I didn't want us to be a burden. When I arrived at the apartment, I rang the doorbell on Chase's unit. When I rang the doorbell, the door opened with a creak, but I heard no response. Diana, sorry for dropping by on short notice. Here, have this with Chase, I said, handing her the containers wrapped in cloth. She took the containers without saying a word. Are you feeling unwell? If cleaning or anything else gets too much, feel free to call me. She responded curtly. Well, I'll head back then. My husband is waiting downstairs. She nodded slightly, then closed the door with a thud. I felt a bit of distance from her. I know I was the one who asked to drop by, but I even called her earlier to make sure she was fine with it. It wasn't that I wanted her to thank me, but it would have been nice if she had said something more. With a sense of dissatisfaction, I headed back to the parking lot where my husband was waiting. Was Diana happy to see the food you cooked her? My husband said that cheerfully. To alleviate his concern, I responded with a forced smile. Yeah. It was that night. My phone rang. The call was from Chase. I picked it up with a smile, thinking he was calling to thank me for the food. Hello, Chase?
Mom, what the hell were you thinking?
Right off the bat, Chase raised his voice. What? What's wrong?
You packed stuff Diana can't even eat. Are you trying to mess with her?
I was taken aback. That was not my intention at all. Hold on, calm down, please. I didn't mean it like that. Chase was fuming on the other end of the phone. Seeing me flustered, my husband took over the call. Chase, what happened? Talk to me. Thanks to my husband, Chase regained his composure and started explaining why he was upset. My husband listened to Chase's story without saying a word. When the call ended, I looked at my husband with pleading eyes. The food you brought over, the soup had egg in it, right? And the pork cutlet is made with egg, isn't it? Puzzled by my husband's words, I tilted my head. Yes, I did use eggs, but Diana is not allergic to eggs, right? She ate the custard pudding I made when they got married, I said to my husband. I had checked not only for Diana, but also for my next wife, if they had any allergies when they got married. We do eat together when we have them over at the house, so I thought I should know. No, it's not an allergy, but she says she can't eat eggs while pregnant because it might cause the baby to have an egg allergy. And she can't eat raw vegetables either because they might have bacteria. My husband said, looking troubled. There's no way that's true. I've heard such stories, but they're just superstitions. Anyway, Chase says you need to apologize to Diana, my husband explained. It didn't sit right with me, but the fact that she was pregnant held me back from arguing. I understand. I'll call her, I replied. No, it seems she doesn't want to hear your voice, Sandy. Chase says a text will do, plus she says she craves for different food every day, so if you want to help, give her some money. My husband said, clearly uncomfortable. Maybe he was right. I nodded, feeling deep regret, so that night I apologized to her through text. From now on, I'll text you on days we can't cook dinner. If you could transfer about $50 for dinner, that would help. I reluctantly agreed to it. I messed up. Although I cooked for her with good intentions, I realized that it's probably best not to stick my nose in too much. From then on, I decided to limit my interaction with my daughter-in-law and helped her only when she asked. Whenever I needed to, I only reached out to her through text and not calls. Occasionally, I'd receive texts asking for dinner money or money to hire a cleaner because she couldn't do it. Every time I transferred the money. But as it was quite a hassle to do it frequently, I gave them a substantial amount of money to spend until Diana gave birth. But still I worried about my grandchild. As the due date approached, I anxiously wait for a call from them, but even after the due date I never got any call. I know Diana was the one having it the hardest, so I held back and waited for her to reach out. However, about 10 days after the due date, I received a text from my other daughter-in-law, Katie. "Sandy, has Diana had her baby?" she asked, probably preparing for a celebration. "I haven't heard anything yet, Katie. I've been waiting for their call because I didn't want them to feel pressured," I replied. And then Katie said, "But the hospital they're at induces labor if you're more than a week past your due date." Katie's words made me worried. I guess she's having a difficult delivery and the baby isn't born yet. Or did she fall sick after giving birth? I was restless, so I contacted Chase. "How's Diana doing?" He read my text right after I sent it. He must be on his lunch break. "Diana, she's doing great." I felt relieved at his words. I was worried that she was having a difficult labor, but if she's doing great, then that's good. However, the text that followed had me doubting my eyes. "Didn't I mention it was a smooth delivery? The baby is almost a month old now. Come visit us soon." What is he talking about? 1 month? Of what? I was left puzzled, holding my phone, unable to comprehend his text. I asked my husband, "Was the baby born?" At my husband's words, I finally understood. The baby was born a month ago? I'm so relieved to hear that Diana had a smooth delivery. And both her and her baby are doing well now. But couldn't they have told me? I also called Nick's wife. She too paused with surprise. "Huh?" Before freezing for a while, as if thinking about something. "Anyway, if the baby has been born, we need to celebrate them with a gift." I texted Diana. "I heard you had a smooth delivery. Congratulations. I'd like to come over to give you a gift. Is it okay if I visit soon?" Diana replied, saying, "I'm not feeling well, so please wire me some money." "You're not feeling well, are you okay? I understand. I'll send some money then, and if you don't mind, I would be happy if you could send me a pic of my grandchild." There were many things I wanted to say, but I held back. "No, it's not your grandchild, it's my child." I've been doing my best to be understanding, but what she said then ticked me off. Unbelievable. Until now, I'd given her the benefit of the doubt because she was pregnant. However, I finally figured that she's been having an attitude not because she was pregnant, but because she wants to distance herself from us. "We supported her during her pregnancy. We should at least have the right to hold our grandchild." My husband texted Chase. Thanks to that, we were able to arrange a visit to meet our grandchild. We agreed to schedule the visit once we could confirm that there were no issues at the baby's 1-month checkup. We had mixed feelings towards Diana, but we were genuinely looking forward to meeting our grandchild. Then the day finally arrived. We decided not to send gifts in advance and brought them with us instead. We were worried that if we sent them, she might use it as another excuse to prevent us from seeing the baby. When the promised day arrived, my husband and I headed to the apartment where Chase and his family lived. "Can we come in?" It's been quite a while since we last came here. Unlike the last time we came here, we heard a baby crying. That brought a smile to my face. "Diana, congratulations!" She greeted us with a scowl and a slight bow. She was tight, cradling the baby in her arms. My husband was happily chatting with Chase. I approached the baby. I leaned in to take a closer look at the baby's face. "She's adorable," I couldn't help but utter. They named the baby girl Maya. Such a lovely little girl. "Mom, have a seat," Chase said to me. I sat down next to my husband on the couch and took out the wrapped gifts from my bag. "Here you go, these are from us. This one's from me and my husband, and this one's from Nick. Katie dropped it off for him, and we brought it with us. Chase, make sure to thank Nick," I said with a smile, glancing at Diana. However, she didn't return the smile. "Please take it back." The room fell into an icy silence with those words. What era are you living in that you expect us to have a relationship with distant relatives? I've been meaning to tell you this, but we don't want you around. Not just me, but my husband and Chase were taken aback by her words. "But you know Nick and Katie gave these to celebrate your baby girl's birth." I tried to smooth things over as best I could. "A celebration? Did you just say thank them right now? If it's a genuine celebration, we wouldn't need to thank them, would we?" We don't need any guests, and we are fine not seeing each other in the future. While we're at it, let me tell you something. I don't want to be involved with you anymore. However, it seemed pointless to argue with her anymore. I decided to stop expecting anything from her, and I calmly stood up. I see, I should have phrased it better. There's no need for thanks. We are leaving these gifts because we're genuinely happy for Maya's birth. My husband and Chase were watching me. From now on, I'll stop meddling with you and Chase. I'll also tell Nick the same. I am wishing you guys all the best to live a wonderful life as a family. To this, Diana replied, That's what we plan to do. After all, weren't you the one who was being nosy from the start? Unbelievable. She's only able to live in a prime location thanks to us. Has she forgotten that? After all the support we offered during her pregnancy. Well then, we won't be nosy anymore. I'm sorry I went out of my line. In anger, I stood up from the sofa. Next to me, my husband also rose, scratching his head in apparent discomfort. Honey, let's go home. Yes. Chase remained silent. He seemed unable to respond to his wife's triumphant smile. Pathetic son. Yes, we'll do fine just by ourselves, so please don't expect us to support you in your retirement years either, right, Chase? Prompted by her, Chase responded, Yeah, that's right, we can't take care of you in your retirement years. Ask Nick instead, he said, looking slightly troubled. Oh, so even my son has turned his back on me. I was so bitter that it was unbearable, but there was nothing more I could say. My husband and I left the apartment in silence. After all, I never got the chance to hold little Maya. I shared the story with Katie, who had come to visit with our grandchild. She was angry on my behalf. That alone provided me some relief. Until then, I had felt guilty, but her words, "You did nothing wrong, Sandy," were truly comforting. At that moment, my husband returned. He seemed to have been out somewhere. Welcome back. Where were you? I just stopped by the real estate agent, he replied. The real estate agent? Did something happen? I asked. He just chuckled. Remember that rental we let go for less than half the price? I just asked if we can revert the rent back to the market price. That's what my husband said. I was taken aback by his words. He never seemed outwardly angry, but perhaps he had his own thoughts. Katie, who laughed and said, Good one, Dad. We offered them the place at a low price since they were our family, but they're strangers to us now. They'll get a notice in a few days. I never expected my husband to act so quickly. Chase and his wife will definitely be shocked when they receive the notice. I hope they reflect on themselves. For a month after that, we lived as if Chase and his family no longer existed. Even Nick and my husband never even mentioned their names. Thanks to this, we were gradually able to forget our past resentment and anger. One day, we planned to have dinner with Nick and his family. Of course, since we invited them, the dinner is on us. Nick was supposed to come get us, and my husband and I were waiting for him in our car. Suddenly, our doorbell rang. Oh, I guess Nick and his wife are here, I said to my husband. My husband rose to his feet at the sound of my voice. I headed up to the front door to greet Nick's family who had come to pick us up. Well, you're early, aren't you? I said, opening the door. Then I froze. There before me was Diana, whom we had cut ties with just last month. Diana? I stammered. She didn't give me her usual cold gaze, and said she was in worn-out loungewear, completely unfit for going out. Her face conveyed a sense of desperate helplessness. I was wrong, Sandy. I'm really sorry, she said, tears welling up in her eyes, and she sank down on the spot. You are just apologizing now, I replied. Just then my husband heard us and came to the front door. Seeing Diana crouched before me, he looked surprised but remained quiet, standing silently behind me. The truth is, our daughter has been diagnosed with an illness. I've started working to cover her medical bills, but with the increased rent for our apartment, we can hardly afford food. Could you please lower down the rent to what it used to be? I was taken aback by her tears. An illness? Maya suffering from an illness? I blurted out quickly, squatting down in front of her. Wiping her tears, Diana nodded. That's so unfortunate, I said, standing up. But sorry, we are about to head out to dinner. Can you please leave? Huh? She said, her mouth agape. It must be hard for you guys. I'm wishing you guys the best. Remember to keep your chin up and push through this with Chase. But wait! Diana shot back, glaring at me. I told you, your grandchild is suffering from an illness. Don't you feel any urge to help her out? She snapped at me. I replied with the words she once said to me. She is your child and not our grandchild, right? Figure it out yourself. Diana turned crimson. I almost chuckled at her sight. I am so fed up with her. She would go as far as making her child sick just for money. I knew she was lying. Because just a few days ago, my sister called me. She didn't know about our situation, but she said, I just met Chase. He said his wife and child were fine. He complained that his wife was always sleeping and didn't do much around the house, but with a baby that small, it's understandable, you know? Hearing about them, I was indifferent. And now, just a few days later, her baby is sick, working, and can't even afford groceries. What a miser. Of course my husband is also aware of this. My husband, standing behind me, cleared his throat and spoke up. By the way, we didn't receive this month's rent yet. If you guys can't pay for it soon, we'll need you to leave. Please let your husband know about this for me. Diana turned pale this time. The rents around here are quite high. Living here just on Chase's paycheck is probably a stretch. Sooner or later, they'll surely have to leave. Then this house, were you going to give this house to Chase? Diana began to lose her composure. That was the plan, but we have no obligation to hand it over to a stranger. Who knows? You guys might even sell it anyways, and that would be a shame for our ancestors too. Our plan is to have Nick's family to live here. I coldly told her. We don't plan on passing our place to Chase anymore. When we talked about it with Nick's family, they offered to move here while renting out their current place. Nick's wife, Katie, said it would be difficult for us two elderly people to live by ourselves. We planned on having dinner tonight to talk more about this. Diana started ranting. Unbelievable, this is unfair. She was the one who severed ties with us. I wanted to snap back. Look who's talking. What's going on? When I looked up, Nick was standing there. Seeing Diana, he had a surprised look on his face. What brings you here? If you're here to trouble our parents again, please leave. Nick firmly turned her away. Dad, Mom, let's go. With that, we locked the front door. Mom, wait, please! I'm sorry, I'm no longer your mom. I left her and got into Nick's car. It hurt when Chase and his wife cut off ties with us back then. However, I felt a great sense of relief when I told them that I was cutting ties with them now. Later, while we were eating, my husband's phone rang. The call was from Chase. My husband looked at it and turned off his phone. A pathetic middle-aged man who can't even correct his wife. He will probably be under her thumb for the rest of his life. Since we stopped accepting calls from them, Chase and his wife even tried to negotiate their rent through a realtor, but were never going to accept their request. Eventually, Chase and his wife fell behind on rent for 4 straight months, so we issued an eviction notice. I don't know if they had complaints about that too, but we consulted with the police about the fact that they had been loitering around the house for a while, and the police gave them a warning. The cost of living in this area is a bit pricey for Chase's paycheck anyway. I suppose he's moved to somewhere far and now spends a lot of time on commuting to work. But he brought this upon himself. It's not an easy world for a man in his 40s with no job title to switch jobs easily. Later, Nick and his family moved into our house. The house they built was quickly rented out, and the rent not only covers their mortgage, but is also an extra income for Nick. We have many rooms, and even though we've become a big family, it's lively and very fun every day. By next spring, my first grandchild will finally be in 1st grade. Time flies. I hear there are plenty of colorful book bags nowadays. My grandchild said he likes green. My husband and I are looking forward to giving him that as a present.